second too, if we need, and then just turn it on when we start.
Yeah. It's on.
Just, that just. Okay, whoa, Shazam. How do we turn this down? Let's see, because that is really loud, and I'm a loud talker anyway. Well, she wanted it. Sorry. I'll just talk soft. I'll use my babies are asleep voice. Yeah, I don't see a way to turn it down. Oh, you know what I could do is move this a little bit. I don't know, maybe that's just getting weird. Okay, I'll keep talking. You tell me if that's working. Talk, talk, talk. Is that good? Okay, can you hear me now? Everything good? So they can still hear if they want to record it? Perfect. Okay, perfect. Perfect. All right, and I'm good to start on time if you are. You've all done your job to get here on time. Is that fair enough? Okay, and we'll get that roster coming around. Thank you for asking about the licenses. That would have stunk to get home and went, OMG, I have no licenses. Yeah. Who punches it in would kill me dead. They always remind me to remind you to write nice, not like I do. So I've done my part there. Don't write like a doctor like I do. I don't even know if mine is good enough for a doctor, but anyway, just by way of introduction, my name is Ann Atkin. I own Meth Mob Decontamination Specialist. Some of the information from this class is derived from information on the 2,000 plus houses we've decontaminated over the last 8 years. Every bit of the laws and disclosure information has gone through UAR attorneys. So they're lockstep with all of this information on here. And I found that a lot of agents just don't know how to deal with the laws and disclosures of meth because it just gets dicey. In fact, nobody even wants to deal with it unless they have to. And then it gets a little bit dicey. So this will be just 1 hour. I want to answer any questions you have regarding laws and disclosure, but ask if you have stuff too. Is that fair enough? Okay, because I can go out of order on this if a question comes up, but this is my picture of buyer beware. In Utah, we are a buyer beware state. If your buyer does not do a meth test, it's on them. If you're using,
If they don't do a meth test,
it's on them. It's their fault that it's, I shouldn't say, that's a horrible way to say it. It's not their fault. It is a buyer beware state. If you don't do a home inspection and you buy a house with a sewer line issue, it's your problem, right?
as is,
Yeah. So the buyer is responsible for finding out the issues in that house. And I find that most people, it doesn't matter whether they're buyers or sellers, most people in Utah are judging a house by the way it looks on whether they should do a meth test or not. And it's easy to go, oh yeah, do a meth test on that nasty hoarder. It looks like Breaking Bad in the basement, right? And this one over here, this was the highest house we've ever decontaminated. It was 10,000 times over the legal limit. And this is the listing paper on the kitchen. You'd never know it. And by far, at Meth Mob, I do way more nice houses that even I judge. I go, really? That one has meth in it? I do tons and tons and tons of nice houses. And what I have found over the last 8 years, and I remember when the health department told me this, I kind of went, well, whatever, stats, or you can make anything up, right? And the health department told me for each person that is homeless or in rehab as a result of meth, there's 20 contaminated houses in their history. And let me ask this loaded question by raise of hands. How many of you know somebody or love somebody that either has gone through rehab, needs to go through rehab, is in rehab? We all know addicts in this room. Okay, safe to say. So this is what addicts do. They get on the wagon, they do really well, and then something causes them to fall off. And then they're off till they're not, and then they get back on the wagon, and do really well till they don't, and then they fall off the wagon. And meth has a huge recidivism rate. The statistics on a meth user is 85% go back within 2 years every time they quit. 85% go back. And so when I first heard from the health department, there's 20 contaminated houses in the wake of every person who's homeless or in rehab, I went, whatever. And now after 8 years of being in the business and talking to all of the sellers that I'm talking to, most all of the time, it's the owners, because usually I'm selling the work to the owner of the property. It's not them smoking meth, but they've helped somebody out. It literally is one of those 20 houses. And so now when I go, what does a meth house look like? Anything A to Z. We just finished a house, it was a couple weeks ago, and it was almost 9,000 square feet, 4 furnace systems. In all 4 furnace systems, beautiful house, as you can imagine it, 9,000 square feet, immaculate. And we did individual testing on all of the rooms because both the buying agent and the listing agent called me up and went, Ann, I need an estimate. And I'm like, on 9,000 feet, we're not doing it. It's not gonna be everywhere. So we did individual testing of every single room to see where our issue was and wasn't. One of the bathrooms was 5,500 times over the legal limit. Most of the rooms were under the legal limit. So we can find out where the issue is, but you would never look at this house and go, oh my gosh, it's a meth house. And so I think it is really hard for our buyers to A, want to spend the money on a meth test, because they're already looking at this nice house going, hello, it's not going to be in this nice house, and these people look nice. And so I want to let you know, from a legal standpoint, if you're using the Utah forms, UAR forms, if you say nothing to your buyers about doing a meth test, you're covered legally, because in that paperwork it says do a meth test. So from a legal standpoint, to say nothing, you're legally covered. From a kind standpoint, a kind human being standpoint, my hope is that you'll be able to, as an agent, go, I know stuff that you don't know. I know how to protect you when you don't know how to protect yourself, and not make it freaky for them, but just go, let's do a meth test. And you might go, why would I do a meth test on this nice house, right? Or can you take me to no meth houses? That's what I would prefer.
I would look at a house and take a chance. If it's a nice house like the one I looked at,
Yeah.
I might not want to spend.
$150, $200 with your home inspector. It's not a lot, but you know our buyers, right? They can drop $1,000 on due diligence, get out of that house, go into the next house, and they got to drop another $1,000. And we're cheap in Utah. You know, our clients are cheap, and we're pretty good judgers. I don't know if that's the good news or the bad news, but we know how to judge. And I think it's easy for our buyers to go, I don't mind protecting myself, but I am not stupid. And this nice house would not have meth in it. I think it's very natural, and in their mind, it makes perfect sense. And in my mind, I go, after all the houses we've done, I promise you, there is no house I wouldn't have tested. And I think an easy conversation with them could be something as easy as, you know, if we're out the last 30 minutes of a home inspection together, and you're the buyer, I might go, now you had them do a meth test, right? And you'd go, no, this nice house, is there something I should know that I don't know, right? And it could be a conversation as simple as, I'll be surprised if we find it here. Probably won't, and that's true.
Yeah, but if you're the selling broker and it's there, you're in trouble. If you
Well,
get a client out of getting that test, you have some liability.
On the listing agent,
If I'm a listing agent and they say, yo, yeah, there's meth there, then yeah, we need to disclose that since there's a fact. But if I'm a listing agent and I need to give them paperwork on the market, but I don't know about it, then I don't know about it.
and I'll tell you this, most sellers do not know there's meth in their house. That has been my experience.
Agent doesn't allow or talks the buyer out of getting the meth
I would agree with that, but proving it would be really hard because they've already signed the UAR forms that says, I've been advised to get a meth test. So then it becomes he said, she said, and guess what's on paper? I recommended you have one. So I go, from a legal standpoint, if you're using those forms, you're covered, but I think an easy sell on a meth test might be, I'd be surprised if we find it here. House looks great, sellers look great, but when you call me up in 5 years to sell this thing, we don't want to find it then. And then it doesn't make it about meth, it makes it about, I'm here for you for the long haul, not just for buying this, but I'm here for you for the long haul. And I think that conversation would work probably in 80% of the cases. You will have some people that you can't have the conversation with, and I don't want to be Pollyanna about it's easy to talk about with our clients, because it's not. It's just not. Yeah.
One question I've always had, when I see someone asks is, let's say I bought a home with meth, didn't know about it, that's whatever. What, excuse me, with the meth just being present there, how does that impact my life? Which is like health.
Yeah.
So like, because I guess what are the, because obviously I don't want my home with meth in it, but really what are the ramifications?
So that question, I don't want to pretend it's not important. It's probably more for my other core class in the laws and disclosure. But Utah Department of Health has a list of things that they believe third-hand meth can contribute to. I trust it. I trust there's correlation. I believe there are people that live in meth houses that test positive that are not even around that meth. And let me give you a real-life example of that. We did a house, it was probably about 5 years ago, and it was kind of in the Mill Creek area, and it was a townhome. And the meth test came back positive, and I'm talking to the owner, and it was, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 times over the legal limit, so it's pretty legit. And I'm talking to the owner, and she's like, of course, she's surprised. Her seller disclosure said no, and it was her truth. It really was. And then she's like, my son died of a meth overdose 25 years ago. I didn't even think of that. Your sellers have no idea there's meth in their house until they get caught with it, and then they're like, how the heck did that get here? And then they start doing the mental gymnastics and figure it out. That is what I run into all the time. Almost every client that we do work for knows where their meth came from. Not because I ask, it's just one of those things that they're going, oh my gosh, where did this come from? And then we explain how meth works and third hand is, and then they figure it out. And that's how some of them go, oh, I didn't do a meth test 2 years ago when I bought it. I know it hasn't been on my watch, and now I'm stuck with the bill. But getting back to health issues. So this lady, she's not had the meth user in her house for 25 years. This was not remodeled, new carpet, or anything. She's just lived there. It was just a grandma townhouse and 2 levels, and she wants to get on 1 level. And I wouldn't recommend pre-clearance testing on a number that high normally. But I knew enough information to go, how many times has this grandma cleaned in 25 years, her house? The carpet was certainly newer than 25. So we pre-tested her house, and there was not a stitch anywhere in the room. And we test ceiling, wall, and floor in every room. And I can't remember if it was 3-bed, 2-bath, but I bet you we tested 30 to 40 areas. There was not a stitch anywhere, but it was all over the legal limit. All of that 3745 was in the HVAC system.
There wasn't a stitch anywhere,
It was all in the HVAC system, because those systems, people don't have the ability to clean. Third-hand meth, this is what third-hand meth is in houses, what you guys are dealing with in real estate. First hand is me smoking. Second hand is you sitting next to me while I'm blowing out the vapor, right? Third hand, which is what we get in the real estate world, in that vapor, when I'm blowing it out, is baby, teeny tiny crystal meth. Wherever that vapor lands, sticks to the oily surface we live in. Gravity takes a lot of it down. The cold air return in the hallway or the front room is sucking 70% of the air. And then the cold air return sent to the furnace, and it either heats it or cools it and then gently sprinkles it around the house. So that's how contamination happens. Then wherever the HVAC sprinkles it around the house, it lands and sticks to the oily surface. So every time walls get washed, every time washable floors get washed, every time this table gets washed, decontamination is happening. But nobody has the tools to wash out their HVAC system. At best, they vacuum it out, but that's not decontaminating. So houses can be decontaminated over time just by virtue of people doing normal house cleaning. So I'm thinking to myself, let's pre-test, and it was a gamble, but it ended up being a good one. So I go, knowing what I know, and I'm a realist, or I try to be a realist. I'm not the health department, but I live by the health department's rules. The health department requires we do the HVAC too. Because if a duct cleaner came in and didn't use a HEPA and blew stuff out, then there would be a problem. But I bet you this lady hadn't been living around meth for years. It's stuck in her HVAC system. But we don't know until we do the test. So I don't know all the healthy, I trust there's correlation, because when you know what goes into meth, you don't even want any of it out there. It will cause damage. But I think third-hand meth is more the young, the old, the weak, and immune system, like anything. COVID, the flu, the everything. So Utah Health Department, sorry I'm pushing you off on that one, but there are issues. And if there weren't issues, I wouldn't own the business that I own. And I also believe our Utah air is worse on some days than third-hand meth in some houses. So the real estate transaction time is a really great time to go. You might have lived in this, but a new family doesn't have to. That's all. It's something that, and we see this all the time in real estate. You live with whatever you live with, and then you paint your house and put in new carpet and put it up for sale, and it's like, oh, why didn't I do that 5 years ago? Now I want to stay. See you. Thank you. Okay. So there are health risks. I do believe in it. And if we can keep the deal together, that's always my goal. So I'm trying to bring the tension level down and still get it taken care of. That fair enough? Yeah.
So to get over where like the legal limit to like prove that there is like it's present, would it take more than one time in that house?
Yeah.
Or is it just
Yeah. So the research is, and this is out of Jewish Institute over in Colorado. It takes 3 times smoking to get a room over our state standard, which is 1 microgram. So I get calls often from people, I just got a 0.23. What do I do? Nothing. Go live your best life, right? I clear houses every day with the health department with traces of meth in there. I'm not opposed to trusting the health department when they go, we believe 1 microgram is what is safe for an infant on a daily basis. I would put my grandkids in any house we decontaminate, even with traces behind. So I don't have heartburn with it. I don't always know how home inspectors test. So when there's a positive test, it's been introduced into that house at some point. But it will not cause it to be over the legal limit. If it's over the legal limit, somebody's done at least more than a few times smoking, right? Or had a party or something, who knows? So 1 microgram per 100 square centimeters. Now, if you said that to your client, that's pretty high tension, because what does that mean? If you went to school here and you're doing inches and dollars and pounds and cents, and 1 microgram per 100 square centimeters just sounds freaky to them. So when you're looking at a test, it looks like $1 on paper, 1.00. And it's about a 4-inch by 4-inch square. So when I'm talking to our clients, I basically go, let's put it in dollar format. So if it was 0.23 micrograms, I would say, that's like comparing 23 cents to $1. You feel a little more calm about 23 cents to $1 than Well, you have 0.23 micrograms. We know meth is there somewhere. They just have a different energy. And I go, let's keep the deal together. How we do that is keeping everybody calmed down. Yeah.
You have to remediate at 0.23.
Nope. No. I mean,
You have to at 1.0.
anything over 1.0. So $1 is right at the legal limit. $1.01 requires decontamination. That help?
Why am I hearing numbers like 60, 90? What numbers are, you know?
Well, what they measure is how many micrograms are in this big. So it can be, I tested one house and it was like 28,000 micrograms was found on that test.
That sounds like a death trap.
Sure does. And it was a police bust house, you know, and there was probably some cooking going on there. But in real estate, almost every house you're going to run into is going to be just smoking. Somebody's been a user in that house. Even this house that I told you that was like 9,000 square feet, there were several rooms. So in the basement, which had its own separate, and this was a grandma house, right? So it was grandkid down in the basement. The upstairs was all fine. There were traces throughout the house. Every single room had some level of meth in it. Every furnace system had some level of meth in it. But the downstairs was where all the trauma was. And so you've got three HVAC systems worth of house that are pretty typical of real estate. They're generally pretty low. And it really doesn't matter if it's 60 or 39 or 2. We're going to get everything under 1 microgram. So the higher numbers help me go, I'm going to need more chemical and manpower, but that's it. Doesn't matter where it starts out at, 5,500, 32, we've got to get it under the state standard of 1 microgram. So don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah.
Are you going to talk about remediation or else painting part of it?
I don't do any painting, but it can bubble the paint. I'll give you a quick rundown of what decontamination looks like from A to Z. And the very best case scenario is you get a no detect on your test and everybody feels great and you're done. Sometimes you get a 0.23, so let's say 23 cents compared to $1. The buyer can get a little tense with that, and some buyers, I can keep almost any deal together, but almost is the key word, right? Some buyers are just like, they can't live with it, or they go, if you get it down to no detect. So we could go in there and take that HVAC system, because that 0.23, 95% of the time will always be in the HVAC. Because if somebody smoked in that house 10 years ago, we can't find it in the house, it'll be in the HVAC. So if we have to do an HVAC deep clean, it's under the legal limit, there's nothing with the health department, because there's nothing that warrants the health department. So that's from doing nothing. You can do nothing at 0.23, and I have no heartburn on that. And then some buyers are like, if it's a deal killer, then we go through the HVAC system and decon it. But it's not with the health department because it's under the legal limit. If it's a 1.2, so now we're over the legal limit. Once you have a test that shows a house is over the legal limit, so over that 1 microgram per 100 square centimeters, at that point, disclosure has to happen. Basically forever, until you do what it takes to have it qualify for stigmatized property. So in any rental, lease, or buying transaction, if you have any test, no matter who does it, that shows over 1 microgram, you're now disclosing this house has meth in it, okay? So let's say it's a 1.2. A 1.2 in my world is kind of like a 0.23. It's all going to be in the HVAC system. But the disclosure changes where we don't want to have to disclose that this house has meth in it. You don't want to have to put that on MLS. You don't want to have to disclose it. So we're going to run it through the health department. So you have 2 options. In the state of Utah, and this is statewide, and I'm going to tell you flat out, Salt Lake has stricter regulations, but covering the whole state. Once you have a test that shows over, you have to disclose on anything real estate. You may disclose to the health department. You guys know the difference between shall and may. So you have to disclose on MLS. In some county health departments, you shouldn't even be showing the house. That would include Salt Lake County. But so we need to get past that to get this house so we don't have to disclose it. So what that requires is once a house is over the legal limit, now our state standard, and this is statewide, requires that it be decontaminated, it be clearance tested or confirmation testing on every single room individually. So if it's got 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, living room, kitchen, appliances, HVAC, and a control, you'd have 10 tests. And then if we're in Salt Lake County, we've got a $400 permit. So this one that was 0.23, for us to do an HVAC deep clean, which it's just verbiage. Deep clean is, I'm not dealing with the health department. Decontamination is, for us to do an HVAC system, one system house, $2,000 on the 0.23 if that buyer's losing their mind. No, this is an HVAC only. And 1.2, I've got to pay a $400 permit with Salt Lake County Health Department. I've got to clearance test all the rooms. That might be another $750 to $1,000. And it's $2,000 to clean the HVAC. So you go from $2,000 to maybe $3,500, that's duct work and everything. So that's everything associated with that HVAC system. So you've got something below the legal limit, only to keep the deal together. There's no safety issues at all. And then finding it's there and it's in low numbers and it's only in the HVAC system. And that happens. It's probably, I bet you it's probably 25% of my work. Because if somebody smoked in that house 10 years ago, it'll still be in the HVAC, but it won't be in the rest of the house. But we have to test all the rooms to ensure to the health department, no, it's not here. So then you skip from that, $3,500, and we're just doing the HVAC and all the other rooms clear, really to a full decontamination, which is scrubbing every inch of ceiling, wall, floor, cupboards, drawers, closets, hallways, light fixtures. It's just scrubbing everything with our decontaminant. It's required by law. If this room, if I do pre-confirmation testing and I test the ceiling, the wall, and the floor, I can't test carpet, so I'm going to test low on the walls. But if this room is under the legal limit and the carpet's new and we have a receipt for it, the health department will let us keep it. And so that's another reason sometimes I do pre-clearance testing. Because at the end of the day, any test which shows you over the legal limit, the only way you can not disclose that is to do clearance testing room by room with the health department's involvement. So if a room is over the legal limit and it's got carpet, if it's got 1-inch blinds, if it's got fabric blinds, it goes. So did that answer that question on decontamination? Okay. Who's your home inspector? What home inspector do you guys use? Pillar to post, nook and cranny. I think they're both preferred vendors here. I've trained all their people. They do a good job. And I would assume with their, on top of their home inspection, it's always additional charge. I would think they're probably in the $150 to $200 range. Now, that is the due diligence testing, right? Once you have a test that's over the legal limit by anybody, another home inspector testing it under does not clear it. Certified decontamination specialists only with the health department. So there's like 30 certified decontamination specialists in the entire state, and I employ 6 of them. It's a super small number. Most of your home inspectors are, in fact, I think there's only 2 home inspectors out there that are certified decontamination specialists, and none in the Salt Lake area. So a due diligence test is what is legally called a non-confirmation test. And if you call me to do a due diligence test, it's a non-confirmation test, which means I'm not doing a control sample with it. I'm not dealing with the health department with it. I'm just going, is there meth here or not? That's what a due diligence home inspector test is. But any test that I take that's over the legal limit as a certified decontamination specialist, I have 5 business days to turn it into the health department. And if your client's still living in that house because they're not moving out till December 1st, the health department will kick them out tomorrow. So there's 2 reasons I'm not a fan of don't call me to do a pre-test. First, I want timing, and I don't want your client kicked out. And second, it's way less creepy when somebody else finds meth than when I find it and go, oh, your house has meth and my company cleans it. It's kind of creepy. I feel like an ambulance chaser. So pay your home inspectors. You've got great home inspectors here. You really do. Are you with Keller Williams? Okay. I just hadn't seen you here before, but I know those 2. And if you have others that you like to use, let me know. I've trained a lot of home inspectors, and I train home inspectors for free because I want them to do a good job. And there are some home inspectors that do really shitty jobs, for lack of a better word. They don't use the template. They just swab everywhere. And if it's a high level, that's fine. But if they don't use the template and they do this and they get a 1.2, and I do this and I get a 0.6.
Okay, so you're swiping a 4-inch square, that's what you said.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and I saw that. I saw them take a little 1-inch, and that was their test, a little 1-inch square.
Yeah. So if you're doing a crappy job, you're not giving good information to the buyer. So not all home inspectors are equal in my meth world. How's that? But have inspectors that you know, love, and trust. Build relationship with them. But I'm a fan of, I'd rather somebody not do a meth test than be an idiot doing them. Yeah.
So, in that example that you just said, if one home inspector gets over the legal limit, can you opt in to have someone else test it, see if they get the same results?
You have to, or disclose forever. But you can't go, oh, I'm going to have let's say pillar to post did a test, and it was 1.2. And your seller is going, there's no way. And you go, that's okay. I got Nook and Cranny. They do a great job for me. I'm going to bring them in. And Nook and Cranny gets a 0.6. That's cool. But that 0.6 doesn't clear a 1.1 or a 1.2. It's like if you called me and went, just do one area, and I come in and I get a 0.6. That doesn't mean you're not disclosing that house has meth. The only way you don't have to disclose is if you run it through the health department, every single room is clearance tested, and is under the legal limit. So what that costs a seller is, assuming we've got a bad test, that they did twice the area, there's still meth there, right? If I get a 0.6, there's still meth. It's just under the legal limit. But now your seller has to pay $400 to the health department, that if somebody would have done a good test, they would show traces. That's what the permit costs. And then your seller gets to pay somebody like me, a certified decontamination specialist, to test every single room individually. And my testing is $150 for the first test, $75 for each additional while I'm on site. Because most of my testing, I do multiples. I don't do a lot of due diligence testing. Again, if it's 10 rooms, that's $825 plus $400 to the health department for your seller to prove they're under the legal limit. That sucks. You're disclosing until you do the clean. So that's why it does matter to me that home inspectors do it properly. It does matter to me, but it doesn't mean I can make it happen, right? It matters to you guys that every agent uses a code of ethics and is honest too. Most are, and it doesn't always happen, right? So any test good, bad, or indifferent, if you have a test that shows the house is over, you're disclosing it's over. And the only way you cannot disclose is to do that full clearance testing with a certified decontamination specialist. Every room that can, and generally when a home inspector finds it, I'm gonna find it too, right? Generally, if they're finding it over the legal limit, I'll find it over the legal limit, but not always.
So I assume you keep a record of every house you've tested.
Absolutely.
You probably tested one of my listings up there. I want to talk to you.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine. Yeah, we do a lot of, like I said, we've decontaminated over 2,000 houses in Utah in the last 8 years. And so I've got a lot of data and a lot of information. I've talked to a lot of sellers. And it was about 2 years ago I went, I need to do a loss and disclosure class because agents don't necessarily know. And honestly, we have some bad eggs in the certified decontamination specialist world, just like there is bad eggs in every world, right? In the realtor world, in the police department world, in the fire department world, in the school teacher. There's probably way more good people, and then there's always a few idiots. I kind of hate the fact that this is being recorded because I kind of, but it's my truth. How's that? It's my truth. So we have more good people, but we've got certified decontamination specialists in Utah that will, if you have a test, let's say from Nook and Cranny, and it's a 1.1, they'll come in and do one test, 3 areas. It'll always be no detect, and they say to that agent, you're good to go. And why would you not trust a certified decontamination specialist? So if you haven't had a lot of experience in the meth world, you represent to your client, hey, I'm good to go. Then that client goes to sell in 5 years, and guess what? It's not no detect. It's there. And so some people are more money conscious than others, and I'm money conscious, but I also want people to not have to disclose I'm doing things right. We all have a moral compass, true? My moral compass is not perfect. I will speed home to Provo and not pay speeding ticket money to the state of Utah, but I'm gonna speed. My moral compass thinks I'm okay with that. So I'm not saying I'm the perfect person, but my moral compass is I want to do the right thing and make sure that house is safe if anybody moves in. And there's a lot of ways I can go about that. But the only way I can prove, and this is health department law, we'll have a slide in here. The only way you can prove it's not after somebody says it's here over the legal limit, so that's that any test that shows it over, now you have to prove that it's not there. And that's what clearance testing is to go 2 things. And by far, it's more, let's get it decontaminated and show that we've got it down below the level that it needs to be so it's safe. But sometimes it is one of those things where the numbers are lower and I go, it's in a fixer flipper house where they've done a beautiful remodel, new wholly smooth texture, new flooring, new cabinets, new countertops, new everything, fixtures, switches. Are we ever gonna find meth on that house? If it was smoked in there 5 years ago? Probably not, but it'll be in the HVAC if it was in that house. So then I have to test all those rooms to show to the health department, yes, this room is safe to live in, this room is safe to live in, this room is safe to live in. All we had to do was the HVAC. And then after we do the HVAC, we test that. Once everything clears through the health department, then and only then do you not have to disclose there's meth. I know disclosure is a little bit tricky, but did that answer that question okay? Any test anybody can show that a house has meth in it and it's contaminated. Anybody can do that test. I can do that test with one test. You could do that test. A home inspector can do that test. A homeowner can do that test. Once there is a test that shows the house over the legal limit, you're disclosing. Until everything clears with clearance testing with the health department.
Does the health department send in the capability?
They do it with us.
They do it with you.
Yeah.
They monitor that.
They monitor it, yeah. And like in Weber Morgan, because most of our bad eggs in the certified decontamination specialist world, there's not very many companies that do what we do, but most of the bad eggs are up in Ogden area. And so Ogden, Weber Morgan Health Department, they're my strictest health department. If I pre-test a house in Salt Lake County, they don't have to be there while I'm doing the pre-testing, but they'll be there when I test the HVAC, and they'll come walk the house, make sure everything's good. And the work we do is exactly the same, but that's how Salt Lake County Health Department works. If I want to pre-test in Weber Morgan, I make an appointment with them. I pay them $130 to come out, which isn't me, it's me nickel and diming the seller now for $130 to the health department to come out and test with us. Then they pay me to do the testing. They're there, they pick where to put the templates, and that's fine. And then if everything comes back under the legal limit, they'll write a letter that says it's good. And if something fails, then you'll pay a $550 permit fee with Weber Morgan Health Department to do the same work. The work I do is the same no matter if it's Provo, Salt Lake, Ogden. But the costs are different because I have different permit fees. No, the homeowner is contracting with us. It'll always be the homeowner.
They come back out.
Yeah, the health department, the only people who can clear a house in Utah is a certified decontamination specialist. And like I said, it's a small number.
Do you have them working for you, one of those working for you, or do they all work for the state?
The health department?
No, the guys that
This clear, yeah, I employ 6 of them. I am one. And I have 6 of the 30 in the whole state. I'm the largest company in the state, and we probably do more houses than all the other companies put together. And I go, part of that's bragging, but part of that's just information. We do a ton of houses. And I'm very familiar with the health department, and I love working with them. And some of them are kind of boneheads. They're harder to work with than others. And I get why Weber Morgan does what they do. Makes me mad because I've got sellers paying a lot more money to them just for the pleasure. But I go, we got a lot of weird stuff going on up there too, so. Okay, I'm gonna go on to the next slide. You guys are asking awesome questions though, and I'm grateful for that. So this is the laws. I put them up here so you can see on disclosure. So disclosure of a contaminated property, this is MLS. The owner or lessor shall, in a real estate property lease, conveyance, or anything related to real estate, you have to disclose. They may report to a government agency, that's the health department, and I'm not sure why we have that little thing, because this is your code of ethics. It kind of covers that thing up. But so you've got code of ethics you have to disclose, and health department you may disclose. That is statewide. Now, these are the code of ethics issues that I run up against in the real estate world. And most of the time, almost every deal stays together and the buyer stays in and we work through it, and it's not a big deal. Every now and again, I have people that don't want to have to disclose, and I get it. And the easiest way not to have to disclose is to just run it through the health department, make sure it's taken care of, whether it's full decontamination, partial, or somebody did a bad test. Somebody doing a bad test is by far the minority. There's usually some work involved. But if the buyer walks, the new seller disclosures go to yes. When a buyer walks, almost always, the agent just makes it inactive status. We go in and we handle it. They put it back on the market. And seller disclosures still are at no, right? Because we run it through the health department. We've got all clearance testing. But Article 12 is probably my biggest one that I run up against. You got to be honest and truthful in your communication and present a true picture in your advertising, marketing, and other public representations. You have to disclose it on all that. You can't disclose your commissions anymore, but you have to disclose meth, right? I know, I shouldn't have even brought that up. It's just the craziest thing.
So even if it's test positive, they went through the process of clearing it, and then they put it back on the market clear, they still have to disclose.
If they went through the proper process, they do not have to disclose. That's what I'm saying. Almost all seller disclosures start out at no. Then the buyer finds out there's meth. The buyer agent calls up the listing agent and goes, there's meth. Listing agent calls her seller and goes, there's meth. Seller's kind of melting down, and most of the time they deal with it. They fix it. Every now and again, a seller will go, I don't care, I've had a gutful. In fact, I should have known there was meth because my stupid brother's been living with my mom who just died, and I want to kill him anyway. I mean, I hear all the stories. If a buyer wants to go, I didn't know, here it is, and they want to sell, that's fine. But the new owner now has to disclose when they go to sell in 5 years or to rent until it's handled through the health department and handled properly. Yeah.
So if it's listed as it tested positive, they still go through a detergent audit and they then pay for decontamination to have that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So remember our sellers market 2-3 years ago where if a house was on fire today, it would still be worth $5,000 more tomorrow. Remember that market? I mean, it was crazy. And buyers couldn't get houses. And I literally had more buyers paying for the decontamination because it was cheaper for them to pay us than to lose their non-refundable earnest money. So that was a short period where more buyers paid for it. From a legal standpoint, in Salt Lake County and Weber, Morgan, it actually, they made a state law which is kind of gray-ish, in my opinion. About 3 years ago, they said an owner of a property is required to decontaminate. So our decontamination standard does not say an owner has to decontaminate. The new state law is the owner has to decontaminate, or the city can pay a company to have it decontaminated so they don't have a blighted neighborhood. Where was I going with that train of thought? Licking too many meth walls. Where was I going with that? Oh, if they're going to pay for it. So as a negotiation 3 years ago, when sellers hoped buyers would bail out because 30 days later they could get 30,000 more, a buyer could actually have leverage on a seller to go, you're required to. If they knew that much, to negotiate. You are required by law to decontaminate your house in Salt Lake County. You're required by law to decontaminate your house in Weber, Morgan. You aren't required by law to decontaminate your house in Provo. You're required to disclose in Utah. You aren't required to decontaminate in Utah, but some health departments have stricter regulations. So that's why we're doing this class, because it gets dicey. Call me up and I will help you, whatever. I mean, if you call me up, I'm always asking 3 questions. What city? So I know what health department I'm dealing with. What are the test results? And is it vacant or occupied? Because I need to know. If it's vacant, it doesn't matter if I do a test, right? Because nobody's going to get kicked out. If it's occupied, I don't know that I want to be doing the test and kick somebody out or run the risk of kicking them out before they're ready. They'll still move out. It can still be done. I'm a fan of doing the work that needs to be done. I'm just a fan of timing. That makes sense. So just tell the truth. Yeah, preach to the choir here probably.
That rule you just said that owners are required to decontaminate, is that's what it changed to, or whether that's what it changed from?
So some of the health departments have stricter standards, and I'm going to show you those. Their verbiage is you shall versus you may. Right? So if we go back here, the owner or lessor of real property is contaminated the owner or lessor may report the contaminated property to a government agency. They may not. If they report it, the health department's going to require that they clean it up, because the standard statewide is if it's under if it's 1 microgram or less, it's safe to live, and if it's not, it's not. So that is the state meth law, may, all right, from the health department standpoint. Basically, these health departments on that side of the red. So basically everything point of the mountain north. Salt Lake County, Davis, Weber, Morgan, Tooele, the Tri-County area, Bear River. Those health departments have stricter standards. And they vary, they change a little bit. So by far the majority of the population has stricter standards, because those few areas have 63% of our population. So all this from here down is may disclose to the health department. It still have to in real estate, but they may disclose to the health department. That makes sense? Now, it will always have to be disclosed if they don't deal with the health department.
It kind of occurs to me they don't think it's quite a serious a problem, and that leads me to ask you, what kind of protection do you and your people use when they go in and clean? Can you get sick?
We probably could, but we're in Tyvek suits, masks. We're all Tyvek'd up.
I feel nervous going into this one particular house.
Yeah.
Wear a mask, whatever you say.
Yeah, I'm kind of a weasel about it with my employees. I don't want somebody's arm falling off in 20 years. I don't know. And when it's 100 degrees out, and if you've ever been in a Tyvek suit, it is like a swimming pool. They're in these things it's horrid what they have to do, and I pay them good money to have to do it because it's a sucky job. But yeah, they're in them. They are. It's just a sucky job. So that map is simply to go health department, required or not. From a real estate standpoint, everything is in the state. So this is Salt Lakes, where it says the owner of record shall report potentially contaminated sites to the department if he or she observes or has reason to believe that the property has been the site of illegal drug manufacturing, methamphetamine use, or improper hazardous chemical storage.
Is that regardless of the legal limit?
Well, contamination starts at the legal limit. Right? They don't care if something's 0.99. Not that they don't care, but I go, it's not considered hazardous at that point. So most of the state is you have to disclose to both MLS, Code of Ethics, and Health Department. And then this is just our standard where, as a certified decontamination specialist, I have 5 working days to turn in any test that I do that's a preliminary assessment. If it's over the legal limit, I have 5 days to turn it in. So if you got a tenant that you want out, the silver lining is I can get a fast eviction because the health department throws them out tomorrow. But you're also stuck with the decontamination, and it can be a pain. So that is Salt Lake's verbiage. This is Weber Morgan's verbiage. And Weber Morgan just copied Salt Lake. It's exactly the same. They shall report potentially contaminated sites. They are required to keep it secured against entry by anyone except the listed decontamination specialist. So you shouldn't even be showing houses that have meth in them in Salt Lake, Weber Morgan. And I'm giving you information, not telling you I'm the meth police. I'm not.
But you disclose it yourself.
You can negotiate anything, right? You can negotiate anything you want. And in most negotiations, we're all going to be working together on the next deal, right? So it's like, let's don't create an enemy. But if I, and everybody's a little bit different. So I go, I'm gonna leave a little meat on the bones for everybody, right? I don't have to have all of it, but I go, if I wanted to torture somebody, I could go, yeah, you're required, and I'm gonna turn your test into the health department, and they're gonna shut your house down and kick you out. I mean, you can be brutal with these things. Yeah, there are, like I said, there are some. And I want a house safe, but I'll give you the flip side example of that. I have a lady who, she called me up, and I'm gonna give you 3 people. There's grandma, she's 87 years old. Good daughter calls me up, and she says, I'm filling out seller disclosures for my mom's house. She's moving in with me. And there's this line that says methamphetamine use, and she's like, and my sister's in there smoking meth as I'm on the phone with you, with my mom, which is why I'm moving her into my house. What am I supposed to put on this line? And I'm like, well, you have to put yes, but you'll never sell your house in Draper that way, right? So what we did, and good daughter knows good and well, bad daughter smoking meth, but we have no test, we have no proof. So I said, let's get a home inspector. So I called a home inspector friend of mine, because they aren't required to turn it into the health department like I am. So we all went over there together. I told this home inspector exactly where to test. I watched him, and I trained him. He knows what he's doing. We do the test. It comes back at like 67. Pretty high, pretty legit. So grandma is 87, and she's a flippin' rock star. She's what I hope to be at 87. She gets around. She's very cognitively there. She's lived in this house for over 50 years. Her whole life is there. And do I turn in that test result and have everything thrown to the dump, or do I go, okay, you know it's over. You know, your daughter, she's already been living in it. I'm not saving the day by kicking her out of the house, right? She's been living around it for years. So over the course of about 2 months, she's washing her clothes, and good daughter's helping her wash her clothes and wash the things that she wants to save. And then she left all the rest behind, and we hauled it off to the dump. And it literally was like last week when we started her house. From the health department standpoint, if I would have done that test, she'd have been kicked out 2 months ago, and I see no need to throw somebody's life away at 87. She's already been around it. If there's health risks with her, and she says to me, I feel fine. And she probably does. Maybe that's why she feels fine. I don't know. You know, but I go, but you don't want a grandkid coming over here. And she's like, oh, heck no. You know, her house is, so I don't want to sit and judge the health or not. Let's just make it a clean environment for the next people. Grandma's already living in it. Wash your stuff, wash it 3 times with good detergent and hot water. The research shows that decontaminates. But if I do it, I'm charging $85 an hour, and I'm testing that with the health department. That's just more money. In my world, I go, clean your own laundry and get it out of here. And leave everything behind that you don't want, because it deserves to go to the dump, because you don't want to take it to DI and get it in somebody else's house, right? Don't even go there, it'll just make you.
Are you saying don't buy stuff at BI?
I'd never say don't buy stuff at DI, but now that I know what I know, I have a whole different vision.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I literally had a,
How would you decontaminate?
You can't.
something you bring home from BI?
and again, most people don't know the dangers of meth. And again, I'm gonna go back to your buyers and sellers. No wonder they're not doing testing, because nobody knows this. That's why I'm giving you this information. And you might think too much going, oh, holy crap. Don't leave scared after this class. Don't leave scared. But I'm like, I would never buy furniture from DI today. And I'm just looking at you because I go, we're probably close to the same age, right? You start out and you grab a couch from grandma's house or off the side of the road, or somebody's giving it away, and that's how you start out, and you're getting your college dorm set up or whatever. And I'm like, oh, just makes me cringe now. But that's a whole nother story. So I know this class can make you, people will go, oh, one lady says to me, I will never walk in a park again after this class. You know, like the parks where the people are smoking drugs, and I'm like, think about all the dogs that do their business in a park, and you go walk and you feel totally refreshed and life's good, and you breathe some fresh air, and then you track all that into your house. Which one's worse? If somebody's smoking meth on the lawn, at least it gets mowed every week and it's gone, right? I go, dogs are always doing their business. Don't lose too much sleep.
Don't get rid of your dog.
I won't,
Yeah,
but it's just like eyes open, like.
yeah.
you're talking about.
We don't live in a perfect world and nobody's getting out alive. So I don't want to pretend that every house has to be perfect, because it doesn't, and it's not gonna be. But I go, this house at 67 that this grandma owns, the new family can come into something that's safe to live in. And I go, and can I help grandma? Yeah, I can, because there's no need to throw away her stuff. And when you are moving into your daughter's house, you're gonna be downsizing anyway, right? There's just some stuff. In fact, I'll give you an example of what got kept and probably something that didn't. In her house, she had this great big, it was probably this big, and it was a pipe organ. And it came across the plains with, great-great-grandma Susie. So this has been in her family for over 100 years. If that pipe organ were there for me to decontaminate, I would probably ruin it. And think of all the crap that's on that pipe organ after 150 years coming across the plains. Now, is the meth bad? You bet it is. Furniture polish, all the dogs that have been in there and snotty kids. There's plenty of stuff on this pipe organ. Clean it and
These
get
are not organic, there's probably all kinds of stuff on them.
right. And we keep eating them, and I'm okay with that. Yeah. So let's not pretend we live in a perfect world. Let's do our best to allow our buyers to protect themselves. That's kind of my thoughts on it. We'll take care of grandma and do it the kind and humane way, but we're not going to give out her furniture to other people, and we're not going to have an unsafe house for when they put it on the market. And we'll have all the decontamination done, everything will clear, it's run through the health department, and guess what they put on seller disclosures when they get it back in 2 weeks? No, there's no meth in there, because that's the truth. So it falls under stigmatized property there. So this is the law that as an agent, you are not required to disclose to the health department unless you're the owner of record. And what this does is allows you timing. So I'm gonna go back to my 87-year-old grandma again. We all knew what was going on. This was actually July 1st when we did the test, so it's been a minute because we're almost into November. July 1st, I went over with the home inspector. This agent knew exactly what we were doing. This agent knew that the house came back at 67. The agent knows we're letting grandma go off and do her thing. The agent is not required to turn in that home inspector test to the health department. That allows that agent to go, let's get this house ready to put it on the market, but they don't have to lie about it. It's not on the market. Does that make sense? So you don't get to lie about it. You still get to do the right thing, but this gives you timing. That makes sense? That is the intention, is to give you timing, to not put you in a rock and a hard spot as an agent, yeah.
How far are you for, if I say, go clean this house, do I gotta wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, I'm about 3 weeks out right now. I hate being 3 weeks out because it's a 2-week process for a full decon.
That's the next question.
Yeah. It takes us a week to do our work, a week to get test results back. So from the health department standpoint, that house is shut down for 2 weeks. But if you gave me paperwork today, and generally I'm about a week and a half to 2.5 weeks out. Right now I happen to be 3 weeks out. So today, if you turned in paperwork, you probably wouldn't get your house back till December 1st. But in the 2 weeks until I could get there, I'd be going, has the appraiser been in there yet? And I'm not trying to set up appraisers. I don't hate their guts. They're in meth houses all the time. You're all in meth houses all the time. You just don't know, right? So I go, get the appraisal in. If we know it's a full decon, get the carpet measures in there to measure up carpet, because it's gonna go to the dump. There's things that can be done in that 2 weeks. Sometimes. It's painful on a transaction. I don't want to pretend it's not. When you, in fact, have any of you had a meth house so far in your real estate world? Were you on the buying end or selling?
I've been, I was on this, selling in, listing.
Yep.
On listing in now, I was on the buying end before.
Okay.
And, but I agree, I'm sure, in my own family, just what you talked about, I've got two younger brothers, I've got the brother and the younger sister. By the way, they're both dead now.
Mm-hmm. But I've
my
lived in a
own
lot of
parents'
houses.
I had to sell that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. The people that are selling houses that are filling out the seller disclosures that say no are telling the truth almost always. They have no idea. They know they had a thug. That's my Ann Atkin word. That's a terrible word to use. They know they've had issues in the past, but they aren't thinking of that. They're thinking about, now I'm stuck with my mom's estate. My brothers and sisters are fighting about this. Or my spouse that I divorced 6 years ago over drugs. I haven't thought about him in 6 years. The gift that keeps on giving. So those are all the houses that have meth in them that your buyers are judging, going, this pretty house. I'd never test it. And I get it from an up here standpoint. I totally get where they're coming from. And that's why I hope as agents, you'll go, it's not about the condition. It's about, it's so prevalent. A national stat is 1 in 10 houses has meth in it. That's a national stat. In Utah, our most current survey done by the government, Utah was number 7 per capita in meth use in the United States.
Utah was number 7.
Number 7. We do more meth in Utah than marijuana with this last government study. It blows my mind. We do a massive amount of meth. I would venture to say we're probably 1 in 6, 7, 8 houses has meth. I know, but I'm going to go back to your 2 family members. You don't have to tell me anything. But if you look at the history of the ups and downs with them and how many houses over the decades, and all they have to do is fall off the wagon in one of those houses. And then there's the houses you don't know because it's like we finally kicked them out. I don't know where they went. I don't even give a shit, right? They're just gone. I'm happy, but they went somewhere. So all of those houses in somebody's addiction cycle where they're trying to do so good become the houses that our buyers are looking at going, everything looks good here, and it sure does. There's not a house I wouldn't recommend having your home inspector test. I'm a freak about test every house every time. I really am. Let me see how much time I have. I have 0 time. I am so far over on this class.
How much time do you need?
You guys can leave whenever you want. I will keep going. How's that?
I'm going to stick around.
You've done your hour. This is a quick cheat sheet on, so the entire state, Salt Lake County, Weber, Morgan, Davis County, Bear River, Twilla, and it kind of tells you who's got the stricter. You don't have to necessarily know this. Call me and I will help you through it. But everything from here on up is statewide. You shall report contaminated sites on MLS, seller disclosures in real estate. Certified decontamination specialist is the only one who can clear or do confirmation sampling. You need a work plan, a final report, confirmation sampling, and the health department to have it qualify under stigmatized property. And amongst all the other things, it's Class B misdemeanor. That's statewide. Then you've got shall versus may decontaminate. With all those other health departments, must be secured, doesn't allow entry until it's fit. Sometimes I need a permit. So they change. I'll help you navigate through. That's why I'm always asking what city, because I get to deal with the health department, and your sellers don't have to worry about any of this. I'll help them through it. We already talked about testing, confirmation and non-confirmation, right? One has a control and it's with the health department. The others are just, they're all non-confirmation. Doesn't mean they're not accurate. They're just not. A home inspector or a certified decontamination specialist has no business clearing a property unless it's done with the control and with the health department, because it's not going to count. And then that's just an example of the placard that goes up, that you can't get an appraiser in once that's up. This is super busy, but this is the law that says the decontamination specialist does the confirmation sampling. Samples have to be collected from a representative distribution of the system. So if it's got an HVAC system, every room associated with that system has to be cleared. And so I know that's super busy, but that's what's required to have a fall under stigmatized property, which is worded the opposite. Once it's stigmatized, you don't have to disclose it. So, seller disclosures, it's a little weird on, yeah, I don't know why this is coming up, but it's this line down here, C, and what it says is, are you aware of any current use, storage, or manufacturing of meth? What your sellers see is Breaking Bad in your basement. That's exactly what they read. This line right here, 21C, it's covered up with this, and I'm sorry, but it says, are you aware of any current use, storage, or manufacturing of meth? What they read is, do I have a meth lab? That's what in their brain, that's what it says. They don't even see from the use.
One of the first ones I dealt with, it was a house we were buying, and it tested positive in the basement. Again, those numbers made no sense to me. I don't even
Right.
But as the owner came back and he said, we've never used meth. And then it was that, wait a minute, my granddaughter was here only a week.
Yep. And that's why I go, have your buyers test every house every time. It is a buyer beware. Houses don't look like meth houses in my mind. I can remember I sold one of my rentals up here in Murray, and it was about 9 years ago. And I have all my rentals in Utah County because that's where I live. And the home inspector says, do you want meth, mold, and radon? And I'm like, no, just give me my home inspection, right? I'm cheap. I don't know what but I remember we used to joke about meth sheds. I don't even know how I came up with that. But in my mind, if I was going to do meth, I would do it. I'm at the age where we would hide in the clubhouse or in the garage. We hid stuff. If we found a pack of smokes, we would hide it. Everything is so available now, and nobody's smoking meth in the meth shed. I shouldn't say nobody's smoking in the garage. Meth users are smoking it in the house. It's crazy. In grandma houses, most of the time, the kitchen is the highest room. And I'm like, what do you do? Wait for grandma to go to the doctor and then go smoke meth at the kitchen table? But that is generally the highest contaminated room. It's crazy. So they think about it after the use. That's just the truth. And it's not their job. They're never going to think about it. So just keep in mind, it's a buyer beware state. There are very few dirtbags that flat out lie on that. There's always a few. But most people are telling the truth when they go, I don't have an issue. If you ask me if my roof is good, I'd go, yeah. Haven't been on there and I don't know how long, but.
You learn more about people in this business than anything else you can do.
Very true.
And that's where the rubber hits the road, right there. I just smile when I see somebody really giving that some consideration and asking, do I need to disclose?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It is a tough one. And coupled with, do I have to go down that drug road again? Because somebody who has dealt with a user or an addict is already paying massive prices. They're already paying, and then it's like, are you kidding me? Even more? The hits just keep on coming. It's a tough one. So just trust. They're generally telling the truth, and more often than not, it's not true. They just don't know any better. So there's your stigmatized property law, where it says, it's super clear. The property's been found to be contaminated. That's that test that shows it over. And the local health department has subsequently found that it's been decontaminated in accordance with Title 19, Chapter 6, Part 9. This is all the Title Chapter 6, 9 that says you have to do everything from a representative of the system, every room. So it gets dicey, but that's what you have to do. Run it through the health department, full clearance testing, then it falls under stigmatized property.
Which you don't have to do for.
Yep. So most people, even if the buyer walks, the seller gets it done. They just make it inactive, gets handled, and everything stays the same. We talked about non-confirmation or clearance testing. You got questions on that? Good. Talked about disclosure, decontamination process, stigmatized property. I think we've covered everything. So I only ran you 15 minutes late. I apologize for that. And I'm happy to stick around for any questions, but you guys have done your part. You've earned your credit. How's that? Just get your buyers to test if you can, and if they say no, don't judge them, right? Just give them a fighting chance. They might have a very good reason for saying no. Thank you guys too. Yeah. Yeah.